5 o'clock, so it's Anthony. I know, Jane.
Okay.
Jane's-
Is there anything else I need to do?
Anthony's not going to find.
Molly's
Molly's not
coming,
gonna-
I think she has to leave at 5, so she
She's
should be
leaving.
here. Yeah, she should be here any minute. And then
She's not here now.
now. Reverse that.
Or is she gonna leave?
Okay, we should.
Like herding
Thank
cats.
you.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
We're good at that.
You want to wait 5 minutes for?
Well, I think we need to, Anthony said he was coming, let's wait for him and also Jane. I haven't heard from Jane, she's not here. So. Jen, so. I think another problem, that's some public people coming in with comments.
It's more engaging when we have
You know, yeah, just maybe stop somebody in the street and say,
There she is,
what do you think?
fresh from travel.
That's from knowing I was exposed to a bunch of stuff last weekend.
Uh-huh.
Oh, there you go.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. I'm just.
Maybe later.
Was in my rental house and, so until the weekend, I figure out.
Jaren's here.
Okay,
Oh, sure. And I have to scoot out today at 5.
How are you?
we're going to save the exciting stuff for 5:15.
I'll leave the minute.
Sorry you'll miss that. Sorry you'll miss that.
And my apologies in advance, I gotta be off by 5:45, just looking at the Zoom.
Again, I don't think it'll be much more time.
I can stay.
Okay, maybe you got for a beer, yeah, talk. Joyce?
I gotta get the car home, so my wife can go to tennis.
All right,
Yes.
well, let's assume Anthony will be here in a minute. So we'll start that meeting. So, call the order at 4:05 PM. And there's no one here from the public, so we're not going to comments. It's not a public person. Approval of minutes of October 18, 2023. Everybody's had a copy of that. Anthony,
Okay, I want to wait before you even get started. You're the person I'm having a hard time hearing. Maybe the mic should point to you or something.
it's not on.
Oh, it's not on. That's my,
Now it's on. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Sort of echoing in the room.
sort of. Okay.
Really? Huh. Okay. Well, we'll pass the mic around if you can't hear.
Now I can hear you now.
We're having the minutes, we're approving the minutes of the meeting of October 18th.
Motion approved.
Second,
Second.
okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I'm going to abstain from the minutes since I wasn't there.
Okay.
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't there.
Yes, and well, you should. Now, the fourth item here is confirming the BOS charge. We just had a informal conversation with Aaron before, and that is going to the board probably at a meeting on November 27th. So everything, as far as we're concerned, we're done with that. We'll hear from them. At that meeting, they will decide whether to remove the ad hoc and make this a regular committee of the town. So this is the number 5 here, so the learnings. Here's it.
He's walking in the door.
There he is. Here's a man.
Sorry, I'm late.
Catch your breath, you're good.
You did the minutes so well. I think we voted you while you're not here that you're going to do it. This Very good minutes. The idea of the learnings from the community meetings, and this is going to be kind of the first of these conversations over a period of time. But there have been at least 4 or 5 meetings of various groups of people over the various couple of weeks. And so I think it's worth a discussion to talk about what we're hearing back from those groups, whether they were in favor of it or not, what kind of issues that were brought up, either positive or negative. So we can begin to take notes about that, and then as we go forward, talking to other groups and larger groups, we can refine our presentation and how we manage the meetings. So you guys have been to two of the Congregational Church and Unitarians.
And-
So-
And also the.
Oh, you went to Madison. Right. So why don't we start with you, Bennett, and then we'll go around the table for those people that act on these meetings.
Just in terms of process, we've been experimenting with how to take notes of these meetings. Molly and Heather have been phenomenal in getting us started, and I and Peter and Mark have carried that on. So we do have quite detailed minutes, comments captured from the first three meetings that I was involved in. I have not yet categorized them across the meetings, which is what I think is what we need to do in order to be able to look at them as a whole. So I'm figuring out how to do that now that I've got everything. Individual notes are finalized. I'm going to try to put them together. Fortunately or unfortunately, those three meetings contained only people who were supportive in some way of affordable housing. Nobody spoke against, as one might expect, from religious congregations and food pantry volunteers.
Take yours.
And the stories we were hearing about their personal experience with Reddit were pretty much the same, I would say. Not a lot of deep revelation, but people sharing that, but for certain circumstances, they couldn't afford to move here. Or they had a friend who couldn't afford to stay after a divorce, or it was only because my company gave relocation assistance. I made a killing when I sold my old house. But there was also, we know people, some of us weren't able to do it. Or some of us moved here a long time ago, but if they had to buy a house today, they couldn't do it. That sort of thing. So wasn't as revelatory, and I don't think we heard anything totally new. A lot of talk about our kids. The kids grew up here, but they can't afford to live. But pretty much up a path. And as I said, no opposition to affordable housing, but a lot of confusion about what it is, and for the most part, a desire to know. So one of the things that got in the way of the methodology we've been using, which is what we've been taught for months and months now, is that people don't want to stick to the question. They basically want to ask new questions. They want to learn. So it's very hard to keep teasing out their data. And so we resort to a parking lot for things that are not germane to what we're trying to discuss. But we found we had to give some education. It's the elephant in the room. You can't ignore it and force people to do your agenda. You know, give them what they think. So
Excuse me, Bennett, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but could you, hold the microphone closer. Yeah, thanks.
and so
Yeah.
so Peter came up with the idea in the Congregational Church meeting, putting together the FAQs with regional planning agency explanation for 2021 of the economics and demographics of housing in Madison as kind of background. So giving that to people, I think that helps. At the last meeting, we did
Not
get,
to interrupt you, but let's say just as you go along, so we make sure we cover.
Yeah.
When people were, the thing from 2021 was distributed, should we be working harder to get those pieces of information out to people somehow or other than just through meetings? Is this something that, let's say, should we have a monthly newsletter that that has facts and figures. on it.
Absolutely, I think, and it's a tension between saying, we're not here to educate or advocate, we're here to hear you. And then we're going to use what you tell us to go out to the public. I think we've maybe heard enough now that we should start putting some stuff up. But I think, so that people can refer to it. I think we should still hand out their minimums. There's a few pieces of paper.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm just really saying it's
Oh, yeah, I think absolutely.
separate from the meetings themselves.
Yeah,
Should we be doing more other ways of communicating?
yeah,
Because that-
especially if it's, I think at this stage, if it's just the facts.
yeah, just the facts.
Just the
I'm not
facts.
arguing, not a
There's
case
nothing,
for it.
exactly. I think that would be helpful, and it would allow us to refer to it for people who want to go back and if they haven't found us. I think that would be great. I do want to say though that, one thing that happened at the last meeting, where Mark and Peter were taking notes, is we're hearing, instead of people giving us their suggestions for what the town could do, they were more giving us suggestions about how we could address the opposition, as opposed to actually dealing with the subject. It's not that they're opposed, but they know other people are. So Mark's suggestion is that we really modify that second question we asked, to include, so why do you think people are opposed to affordable housing? And give any suggestions as to how we might address that, instead of, because we're not getting what we're receiving in that question very much, and I think it's open enough that people have concrete ideas. There's a whole lot of stuff. Some of it's already on our Google page, and the rest of it will be. I haven't sent it to the latest ones to you. So I'll just work on it. And as soon as I have a compilation, I'll put that up.
Peter, you want to say anything?
One of the comments was there's no downsizing opportunities in Madison. That was, people that wanted to reduce their rent, or they don't have a chance. There's no downsizing opportunities necessarily. I mean, places that are affordable, we think of as affordable, not as downsizing opportunities. People want to stay in Madison, but they can't afford to stay in Madison. I have nothing other than what you said, Matt. We've had very, very positive responses, though, to everything that's been said, in my opinion, and very thoughtful responses to it. People really seriously thinking about what we're saying, but no opposition. We haven't seen any opposition.
There's just one thing that's after 3 meetings now jumped out at me. I think for us to really get the full benefit of this, we have to go to some hostile territory. We have to, because we're not. If the goal is to.
You know some of those folks?
I'll have to bend it out.
Please, yeah, because we're not hearing, I mean, we kind of know, but we're not hearing directly from people what it is we have to try to address. And I thought that was a large part of what we're going to get. We keep talking.
Can I just ask how big the crowd? I'm sorry, how big were the crowds? How big were your meetings? Like about how many people attended?
They've been small. They've all been around 12.
Yeah, 11, 14.
Considering there's no food, we,
Oh, we did bring food for.
You had food.
Yeah.
oh, you had the food there? Okay.
Yeah.
Cookies.
Got a bigger crowd then. Yeah.
Yes,
Microphone.
all right.
To the audience.
What is
Right, so
it?
This was like an informal, I was at an event. And
What type of event? Sorry.
yeah, it was an installment dinner at Cafe Allegre. Sorry to say Knights of Columbus, right? There's a lot of people there. So everybody's having a drink beforehand. Somebody mentions, oh, Anthony's on the Affordable Housing Committee. It was a crowd. I didn't know what they were discussing. So I was drawn into it, right? So it was really like one person's view mostly. I, in my heart, believe that most people didn't believe what this person was saying, but it was very negative. They got emotional and a little bit angry, kind of. And I wish I was a little bit more prepared. I was listening, trying to rebut some of, because some of the statements were, well, you can't do that in this town. There's no room here and you're gonna hurt our property values. And I said, well, those are kind of myths that kind of, the literature and the data doesn't support. And I was trying to be, yeah, I did get my Italian up a little bit. But I was trying to, talk to some of those points to the point where I said, you should come to one of the meetings. And you can, voice your opinion. It's open to the public. And, you can really, get both sides. But it got, not on my part, it got a little heated on their part because they got very emotional. One or two people did chime in like, that's ridiculous. You can't have affordable housing in Madison, Connecticut. And I said, why not? I said, and I used the example of, my kids went through the school system here. They love this town and they would love to come back, but and they got good jobs. They're out there working. I said, but they couldn't afford to live here. And one person obnoxiously said, well, two of my kids, moved back here and they're fine. Yeah, they got your help. I did not want to say that.
After
But-
a house with
Yeah. Thank you. But it was kind of like, okay, I guess people, when they get on that shtick, they don't want to get off of it.
Yeah.
And I attribute it to ignorance, and that's our job to educate people, right?
Mhm.
But what, Jenny? No, tell me.
I'm just surprised that there was such a strong.
Me too. I kind of like,
Especially.
I had an extra bourbon after that because I was disappointed. But like in my heart, I want to believe it was, it's not everybody's.
So maybe if we do some sort of communication, what we need to point out is some rebuttal to that. It sounds like you're concerned about property values. And maybe we can give them some statistics on that. And I guess that's what they need to know. I mean, there are beautiful facilities and you guys have this all written up. I went to the one in Essex and I was like, oh, people are like, oh, let's see if I can get in there, for senior housing. So I'm really surprised. I think it goes along the lines of you're probably in a situation where somebody really didn't understand what it meant. And maybe they were thinking of like tenements down in Bridgeport or someplace.
I agree. Yeah.
That's that.
It is, I think there's underlying a lot of these things, fear that things will change. Worse, whatever that
Right.
is, like taxes go up on property things.
And these are educated people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I think the fundamental fear is that the fundamental fear is exactly that. We're gonna let others into our town that we may not want, that they are going to bring down our property values, and that it's gonna cost us money. I mean, that's really it, right? These are people we don't know, and they're going to impact the community. That is the fundamental fear, I think, that comes out. I don't know that, and I like the way you were pivoting the conversation, because I'm not sure that a lot of people want to say that publicly. That's their fear, right? In a conversation, even in a potentially safe space where you're asking. But if you put it like, well, what have you heard from others? Or what do you think others' concerns will be around this? It takes that fear, the fear of them putting their personal opinion on the record, and puts it potentially out there. Yeah, of what have they heard from others? Maybe we get more of that. And so then we can rebut those myths.
I think that I would welcome it. To Anthony's point, if we do that in one of our community conversations, we're not rebutting. We're hoping someone else will say, well, I have a different view. But we're not rebutting, we're just taking it in, and that becomes fodder then for our education campaign. We gotta hear it all, I think you summarized it. we should hear all of the.
Right, and as facilitators, you can then turn it to, and it sounds this is what, like, I haven't been to these sessions, but as a facilitator, then you can turn it not to you rebutting, but to, well, Peter, you're joining us. How would you how would you address that concern, right? The rest of everyone who's not this committee to come up with ideas on how to address that.
Also, something to remember is that we had a lot of, not a lot, 10%, but there's already 91 units over on Word Meadows. Affordable housing is there. You have affordable housing, little pieces here and there. So the fact is, affordable housing is in Madison and has been for some time.
Yes.
So it's not a brand new idea. And I think that's one thing we're pointing out, even though it's not that much, it still is the fact that we've had it for a long time.
And it's point, and it doesn't seem to be impacting the property values around downtown Madison. Even though, on the contrary, like people want to be as close to town as they can be. And yeah, I don't see anybody up in arms at the property values in town.
I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't hear us, just shout, Francine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would hope that we could come up with one or two organizations that we could really reach out to aggressively to get an whether it's the firefighters, whether it's one of the sports teams, whether it's.
I think the Knights of Columbus would be a very good one.
I could easily put that on the
Yeah,
agenda.
why don't we do that?
These are, a lot of them are guys who are very much engaged in the town.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. There's some developers there, there's some finance guys there. Yeah. I could easily get that on the agenda.
Is it a good mix demographically of ages and?
We're starting, I've been there a while, and I was the youngest for a long time, and I'm old. We're starting to recruit, we're doing a good job. So yeah, and now there's some younger guys, actually with kids, young kids, so yes.
That's important.
We're starting, it is important, I know.
And how about the chamber? Mike, you said you have a contact with the.
The executive director, I haven't talked to her yet. She is the new executive director, I should say. Have you guys have any engagement with her at all, the executive director there? Maybe it wasn't any particular reason why you should.
Yeah, I have not. I know that there's someone in my office who goes to some of those meetings, but the meeting time changed, and so it's been hard for her to get there, so she has not even met the new person, but so no, I mean, she's right next door to us, but I have not.
I think the chamber, the chamber is, for a lot of reasons, a good people to talk to. But and then maybe saying, you shouldn't be an agenda item on somebody else's meeting. And I doubt very much you're going to get a big turnout at the Chamber of Commerce. A meeting for just affordable housing.
Yeah.
I mean,
What you might
it's
ask,
worth talking, conversation.
what you might ask though is, could she bill us at the end of the meeting, so people who want to leave? But because we at least get a 10-minute intro.
Be more like that.
And then,
I mean,
but-
it's usually a luncheon meeting, and so people
Sure.
go back to work and I think that she is in communication, that's her job, to be in communication. So it may be worthwhile asking people through the Chamber of Commerce to come here and meet with us at one of our regular
I
meetings.
do know that at some of the meetings, you can like pass out flyers if you've got something
Oh,
going
yeah.
on. So we could possibly pass out FAQs, something like that, even if
And
we,
invite people to come here for a meeting if they
Yeah,
wanted to.
yeah.
Right.
Or see if there's enough interest in the room, if she's willing to host a special meeting just for those who say, yeah, I'd like to hear more. Or I'd like to talk.
Or maybe the conversation is tailored a bit, right? It's tailored to, what are the concerns you'll have about, hiring people in Madison and them having housing in Madison, right? It's,
Well, that's a thought. Is there maybe a questionnaire we ask them to pass around to the Chamber of Commerce? And ask them about issues that they're like that.
Right.
How easy is it to hire, people to staff your market?
how far away are people traveling your average employee traveling to get to a job here in Madison at your company.
Francine, you want to work with me on that? Try to develop like a questionnaire that we could use elsewhere besides the chamber and then.
Sure.
maybe-
Yeah.
Okay.
Just one other thing that we heard often, that I guess across all the meetings I've been to, I would say that the two most highly supported suggestions were, one, focus on longtime Madison residents whose kids can't afford to live here. That's very powerful emotion. And the other is focus on what percent of town employees can't afford to live here. And even Thomas is.
We haven't followed up on it, but I think Erin said we have that. We not the names, but just in other words.
I can get the list if that's what you're, I was waiting for the official word. Do we want to get the list from HR department?
Yeah, titles and salary range.
Okay.
Because we can draw a line because we know what the income is, so we can draw a line and just say those below this or not.
Well, I think it
Yeah,
should, town employees.
What percentage by job?
For us, no, say have a list of everybody, but then because you know what the salaries are, you can then say those people below this will not necessarily be able to afford to live in town. I expect that to be a large percentage.
75% or less than 80% of the.
Okay.
Whatever.
Yes.
So that's what we can say.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't, wait a second. I can't hear everything that Bennett is saying because he's got his back to me, but I'm going to chime in on, I think what you were getting at is what I've said before several times. I think it's really meaningful to talk about salaries, about income, and how that plays into what affordable housing is. And so, yes, it's if we're prepared to show a salary, salaries in town, and then how you break that down per month, and how that dovetails with what the thresholds are for affordable housing, those are meaningful. That's meaningful information. And maybe if the person that Anthony was talking to understood it from that point of view, we're not talking about dragging homeless people in off the streets, although, let's face it, I was not listening for a second because I was Googling Knights of Columbus, something my parents belonged to 1,000,000 years ago, to be reminded as to what their mission is. And by the way, charity is like the #1 thing. So it's so ironic to me that you're at a Knights of Columbus thing with people that belong to Knights of Columbus. I mean, it just makes me want to scream, to be honest with you. So I'm venting a little bit, that, get real. And so then maybe you shouldn't belong to this organization if charities are #1 mission, and yet you're freaking out because we can't have people that need affordable housing. Anyway, I digress. Yes,
Like I said before, and I could give you a host of charitable things we do in this town, and it's quite a bit. We give a lot of money away. And in my heart, to the Knights' defense,
Mhm.
like I said, I don't think it's everybody's consensus. It might have been 1 or 2. And they got a little emotional about it. That's not what the Knights of Columbus stands for.
No, I'm not saying that. I just said, it's just ironic, though, that someone that.
Say brush, I hope.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I was just saying that it was ironic to me, though, that a member of that organization, more than one member, I'm sure, that's their knee-jerk response to this. And so that just tells you that if that's there, then, I'm totally expect that from many, many, many people, maybe even more than half, majority, who knows? But anyway, I do think that the income thing is a really important piece of information for people to have, because that's very cut and dried. There's no agenda in there. That's just numbers.
I would add to that, because I know we were talking about townspeople, but what about school teachers and people?
Yeah, all of them. I don't mean just. Yeah, it's any job that you could have in town, whether it's a teacher or a firefighter or a store clerk or whomever.
And Francine, I think if you went out in the street and asked 20 people in a row, you'd find somebody who's just like that.
No, I'm expecting to find many people on the street, not just one person. I'm expecting to probably, even possibly, the majority of people will not be jumping up and down for this. That's my, just, I'm a little cynical about how people are going to.
But I hope you're wrong, but I'm not, I don't
think
know,
this
we'll find out.
responds to Eric's, three main reasons. It's the fear of the other, right? And the
Yeah,
other
absolutely.
is-
Well, I think you also, I agree with you, there is definitely that, and I don't think there's any doubt that's that part of it. But I also think people are just don't know what it means, and they heard at a cocktail party that your taxes are gonna go through the roof if that happens,
I
whatever.
accept that.
Which is not just necessarily worried about who's gonna occupy the buildings, it could be personal situations.
But if we put a human face on it, like our kids and town employees that we depend on, in my eyes, say they can't afford to live here, is that the kind of community we want to have?
I turn our, yeah, let's follow up a little bit on that, because I think I hope Francine is not correct that the majority of people are against it, will be against it. We don't know, find out. But I do think there is a considerable amount of ignorance that exists. And when you don't know something, you don't want, if you don't know what's gonna happen as a result of this particular thing you're proposing, I'm against it. I don't want to do it until I understand what's going on. I think.
I also just, one more thing I would add is I think it also is another good, important piece of information. And I don't know who mentioned it already, if it was Bennett or you, Mark, or someone else. It's already in Madison. It's already here. We have some, we just don't have enough.
For decades.
And so,
Decades.
and so it hasn't affected anybody's taxes yet, has it?
I
That's.
think if, according to the woman I met, and I'll bring this up a little bit later, talking about Concord Meadows. I would suggest that almost no one knows that Concord Meadows exists even.
Mhm.
So as far as affecting their lives or affecting their anything about it. They don't.
Yeah, there's no detriment to Madison from the places that already exist.
Only academic argument about the impact on taxes.
Yeah.
School costs, it's all been refuted, and even more so here, because we're 96% dependent on residential property tax. So the only way we're gonna get more residential units is by density. And that will increase taxes, not cost us tax.
Jane?
It sounds to me like, maybe we need to be putting out material on this and not just on the website, because I know some people don't even know about, the town website. Some people just don't use websites. Maybe we should do a mailing of, some key points, so that people start getting the idea in their mind a little bit. It's sort of like creating a vision or a brand for this topic. And right now, it sounds like people in our town don't know what it means, and probably don't know that Concord Meadows has X number of units, because they don't live there, doesn't, people become very myopic, they're in certain neighborhoods and whatever. So I think what we might try to do is distill down some of these statistics and identify the people that affordable housing is really for in our town, and make it clear what the numbers are, and also point to the statistics about how it can benefit a community. And it's hard to always, to take a bunch of information and distill it down, but I think if we just even did like a postcard every so often, I don't know how much that costs. And we've done bulk mailings.
The postage is a killer.
What about
you can
taking
get
that?
discounts.
I think it's a great idea. What about taking that idea and going sort of the earned media route, and getting into the Shoreline Times or the source?
We should start writing letters to the.
But I'm sure I think if we approached them and said, hey, we'd like to do an article, they could write it up, they can put their own byline on it, take the press release. There's also that Madison magazine, that they like to
Yes.
put a family in.
Yeah.
Maybe one of us could be highlighted in there as a Madison resident and can tell the affordable housing story as a part of that. I think we could put together a bit of a PR strategy.
I think we need to do that.
That
I
puts
think
some-
that's a really good idea, Eric. I mean, Mark and I talked about that once when we were just talking in one of our own little meetings, on our committee thing, or, subcommittee thing. We talked about that and we kind of haven't done anything more about it, but I think that is a really good idea because that's able to reach people in a way that we cannot. And it can maybe be coming from a thing that maybe has no agenda, won't be viewed as particularly having an agenda, as if we send something out. And I think that's a really good idea. And, yes.
We have, I think it came up at the last meeting, we have at least 300 plus names, email addresses from the people who participated in the survey that was done last year. The ad hoc committee. And I don't know, have we been collecting email addresses?
Yeah,
Some
plus
people
a couple dozen more.
Okay, so I mean, we could actually, I think the earned media thing is a good, very good. Why not? It's exactly what it is. It's free. We are going to have an event that, assuming the board of selectmen does approve or becoming a part of the town committee. So that actually is a news event that can actually leverage.
That's smart.
There you go.
Like
this.
Like that. Leverage it.
I didn't hear what you said, Mark. What did
I
you say?
said that when the board of selectmen, assuming they do vote to make us a formal town committee, that's a news event.
Oh,
which-
yes, excellent. Yeah.
Contact the source and or the Shoreline Times and say, you want to report a story, they're all looking for news.
A new town committee.
New town committee has been formed and it has this, has this mandate, but it also has a desire to communicate with the community and that kind of, we have to think about what we want to say, but that's the kind of thing we want to have. So please, come to the meetings, please come, every, whatever it is, whatever the schedule's going to be.
It was also the first recommendation of the ad hoc committee. This was their highest priority
Actually,
recommendation
that, the original.
to make us.
Right.
So that has some symbolism. We also talked about doing a short Guilford Day. The town leader in Guilford attributes much of their success in acceptance to the impact of that video. And it was short, 6 minutes. I think somewhere I heard it cost 5 million.
Yeah, right now, I think, you mentioned this before, I don't have a problem with the idea of the video. I think that's probably too soon at this point.
Well, start development is not going to be.
We can start thinking about it, but it's not even the $5,000 the issue, although we have to find $5,000. But I think that a video that people have to find is different than a video that people see. And so I think that we want to try to get people aware of what's going on in our committee and what we're trying to do. And then we demand to see the video. That's what we, I think, because again, we're not going to show the movie house. So it's 6-minute video. I think that, Jen, Jen is, I assume she's there. She is connected. Jen?
I don't think she's there. She's not lit up on my screen.
Oh, she's not lit up on your screen. Okay, I just got her name on there. But
There she is.
we have Heather.
There she
She's
is.
sitting right here. So
She's there.
sorry.
Hey, Jen.
Hi, guys. I've been following along.
I wonder if you had a chance to hear any of this conversation as we sort of went back and forth. It's been bantering back and forth.
Yeah, in regards to spreading the word, getting more information out to the public.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
Any issues you hear with that?
no, I think it's great. I mean, honestly, the better informed the public is, the happier they are, is what I found. And, if there's a way that you guys can coordinate with maybe Sarah Kerr, she's a reporter in town, or Ben Rayner. Ben
Rainer with a
Yeah,
V.
R-A-Y-N-O-R,
So again,
R-A-Y-N-O-R.
Rainer.
Jen, we lost you. You there?
His name I
Yeah,
probably
lost, yeah. She is.
He's
Sorry?
just the source. Yeah, he's just the source. I grew up next door to him.
What's that, Mom?
Fun fact, I grew up next door to him.
Oh.
Oh, is that right?
Ah, so we have a secret
Here's
agent.
one other
or-
thing
You
that
do have a
I'd like to
secret
bring up in this conversation too, that is the definition of affordable housing, we are charged with is indeed restricted affordable housing based on the dollars given to us. The New Haven area income center. Should we broaden that base to talk about more accessible housing, in other words, not just deed restricted? I know this, and I don't even know what this means as far as our charge is concerned. It seems to me things like the granny flat idea could be very appealing to people, but maybe not if they have to have a deed restriction on that for 40 years.
But that, no, but that cuts both ways. That's everybody with affordable housing is using that as well. So the fact that it can be used for capital A affordable housing or affordable housing with lowercase a, that's great. I think we should promote all those ideas. The more housing we have.
Oh, no, that's my argument, exactly, that the
it's
more
all-
housing, the better it is.
It's sort of trickle down and trickle up.
But we've been focused on deed restricted. When we're talking about it, we're talking about deed restricted.
Yeah, but the more flexible we make it, Mark, it can go both.
No, I think we should be more flexible. That's my argument.
But it goes in both directions, so it's a win-win, right? It's used
I'm
for,
in favor of those, yeah.
I think.
Any comments here? I mean, I think, so when we're having a conversation with meetings or we're talking about it in any other way, that we can talk about other forms of affordable housing that does not require.
Mark.
Diversity in housing options. It's, you know, the ability to, like Peter said, downsize, right, at a certain point in your life, which doesn't exist in this town, or the entry level housing for a young family that's not in this town.
You know, we need to make that more usable, right? Because right now, it's still one unit on a lot. You can't have a duplex.
Oh, yeah, but let's not, we're not gonna touch, I don't want to change that. I'm just saying, from the committee standpoint, we have conversations. Are we talking about diversity of housing? Or are we talking about deed restricted housing?
I think we would have to examine some of the rules around if we were to use accessory buildings and if there are tax benefits associated with that from a real estate tax perspective. Because I think Erin said you have to have some sort of deed restrictions if you're going to get the benefit on the other side. So, you know, I have a hard time seeing someone saying, hey, I have an accessory building and guess what? The market value is 2,000, but I'm going to lease it to you for only 1,000. You know, unless there's an incentive for them to do that.
Well, I agree with that. It'll be market price, but there is a lack of just one bedroom apartments in this town that are at a price point that someone could rent.
And I think that,
Beyond a few.
you know, Heather and I have clients who will fully qualify for affordable housing. And right now they are living in places that they can't afford to live. So if they're paying $1,600, let's just say, for a 2-bedroom apartment or 1-bedroom apartment, whatever they have, and if they're eligible to pay $1,000, then that opens up the $1,600 apartment for somebody.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think that's the argument. It's
Yeah.
diversity of housing.
And if
So
you-
Mark, I can just ask, I couldn't hear everything that you were saying, Mark. So let me just ask you a question. Are you saying, are you trying to get at what the goal of the committee is? Is the goal of the committee only deed restrict? What exactly were you saying?
We have been focused, not necessarily, you know, in everything, but we've been focused basically on deed restricted affordable housing. Looked at
Okay,
the information about how you end up, you know, what is that going to be and how does it work and talk to people like stuff that's being done down at Cottage Lane. We interviewed those people. But we've been focused on that. And I think what, I like Eric's phrase, but I mean, the diversity of housing, if you were talking about downsizing, people who are living in a 5-bedroom, 4-bath house in North Madison doesn't want to downsize to necessarily, don't need to downsize to a small, deed restricted thing, but they do free up then, and it does, it creates more opportunity for people if that happens. People, I mean, I think there is a fact that people are stuck where they are. It is a problem. I mean, you can't afford to live here except where you currently live, because you bought the house years ago and the price was half what it is now.
Molly's.
Oh, go ahead, Jane, go ahead, you can finish.
Molly had a very good point, that she made earlier.
I heard what Molly said, I got that, but here, okay, so. I guess I would just, I mean, I agree with the whole, the bigger picture that yes, on several levels, a diversity of housing stock would be very beneficial to many people in Madison. But I guess I would push back a little bit on not seeing deed restricted as a priority, because let's face it, our whole reason for becoming a committee is because the town needs to increase its percentage of deed restricted, satisfy 830G affordable housing. And if we don't do it, it's going to happen without us. And so I guess I feel like that is very much our first priority. I'm not saying that that diversity of housing wouldn't help me if I want to downsize or when I want to downsize, or younger families and all of that. I agree with all of that. But we wouldn't even be having a conversation. We wouldn't even have a committee if the town wasn't under the gun, because none of that other housing counts as far as the state of Connecticut goes. So that's just, what I think of when I think of what our charge is.
Francine, I agree with you that our charge is our charge, and we're here to promote affordable housing. However, I don't think it's either or. I think these auxiliary dwelling units are one of many techniques that communities all over the state and all over the country are using to increase the supply and diversity of housing. That does not as directly as a developer coming in and doing 30% of the units affordable, but every piece contributes. So I don't think we're diluting our charge when we embrace affordable housing units, especially if we can point out that the town needs to do better. The limitations are not great, right? Aaron admitted that we're below the state standard. We could be more flexible and thus they'd be more attractive. But if you look at the thing that I wasn't edited the document that Eric wrote about that we sent to the Board of Selectmen for the plan and to P and Z for the plan of conservation development. We're talking about diversity of housing, and the sort of unspoken subtext is affordable housing, housing for all. It's part of that. I don't think we lose our focus by doing that. I think we maybe get more people to listen. I think Mark's idea is really helpful in that regard.
I just want to bring up one subject, and that's with regard to new development for affordable housing. We can look at small things and see what developers are doing when they're saying, let's say in Concord, I don't know what the percentage is, and how that developer finance that. But if you're looking at new development and you want to really create some sort of impact in this need, grants and loans, this type of housing require deed restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, I want to just also bring up the point that a lot of towns extend those deed restrictions because they don't want to wake up in 20 years and say, oh my gosh, we have 30% of our affordable housing is going to become market in like 10 years from now. So I think we need to also think about that. I'm very much in favor of deed restrictions. I think it's the only way you're going to get people to give up profitable rent, even in their accessory buildings. In deed restrictions, you'll get something in return, you get like a tax incentive or whatever it is, but I think there's not a natural way to go about this. It's going against the market and going against the demand, and we have to figure out the funding. There have to be rules, and I think deed restrictions are just one of those mechanisms.
Totally agree.
That makes sense.
Any other comments?
I just want to respond to that. I think
Of course, Bennett.
you're absolutely right, but, you know, Peter's developed this little thing here that I think, I don't know where it falls on the agenda, but it speaks directly to what you said. 830G is the vehicle by which private developers, without any subsidy, are going into towns and negotiating friendly deals for density. That's the alternative to federal tax credits and state grants and all of that, is density. We met 4 builders, 3 of them spent their life building single-family $1 million homes and were sick of it. And they put together, with not a penny of public money, 30% affordable developments. One of which is a luxury gated rental with Olympic pool and phenomenal community center and top rents at $3,800, $600 a month. And they got 30% of 180 units.
Yeah,
And
it's amazing.
I agree with you, Bennett, and that's probably what's gonna happen here, because the market rate is so high, it will offset the discount they have to
Yeah,
give.
it's just fine.
Still, you're gonna have deed restrictions.
Oh, I
on
agree.
others.
They're willing, as I'm saying, is they're willing to pay that price. They can get density.
The fact is that we didn't sign court contract with Madison. Very few other units we have are accommodation market rate and affordable, deed restricted affordable housing without any special findings.
We have about 200 affordable units, somewhere in that number in our town, between Concord Meadows and,
You're being generous.
I think.
I might be.
135. It's 135. That's all.
Right, we have to get to 1,000 in order to meet the, in order to meet the 10%.
That's
okay.
true. So the quickest way is to have a non-profit affordable housing development, do the entire development of affordable housing.
Exactly.
At a time, we can't do it one house at a time, we'll never, ever,
No,
ever.
No, I'm talking about a development.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
As opposed to having a for-profit developer come in and say, okay, I'm gonna give you 30%.
Right, you weren't here when Peter Penrose,
Yes,
they're 100%, 100%.
Yes. that's what we
And
need.
100%,
Okay, they're
federal money.
for-profit? Okay,
but 100% affordable.
well,
How
that's,
they make the numbers work is magic.
yeah.
I don't know, they are one of the.
I think he mentioned they do get some grants. I
Well,
think
they do, they get
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
drive.
Tax
the-
abatements.
But that's the route I think we need to go down. I mean, it's
We're not-
fine.
But I think, Jane, really, I don't think we're changing our route. I think we have to be, you're absolutely, you said before, I totally agree. The basic core job that we have is to increase the number of housing units that are being bought. I just think that when we are talking to people who are living in, who are already living here, so we talk mostly to, and saying, okay, all we're talking about is that. And we then are not able to talk about diversity. We can't even talk about, expanding the housing base, giving people more options about where they can live. So, I mean, I think that is useful to have that in our pocket when we're talking. It's not, this is the choice. You have a big house on a 1 acre lot, or you can have, it's cost $1.5 million, or you can have, affordable housing that's going to be restricted. I mean, I think if the town would benefit by having just more housing units that people can choose to live in, I think that is something that we should just think about. But I agree with you. This is not, we shouldn't be diverting ourselves from the real job. Is what you're saying. I believe. Is that fair enough? Yeah, I think let's continue that conversation. We're not jumping off the cliff in another direction. So Peter, you want to talk about your visit to the wonderful wall?
Well, Bennett and I had the pleasure last Wednesday of visiting 4 very nice, affordable developments in Wallingford and Milford. They were sensational. I mean, 3 of the 4 were done without opposition. One had a little opposition. The zoning was denied before they started. But I just wrote up what we did and who we met with. We met with the developers, all of whom were very enthusiastic with what they were doing in terms of creating 30% affordable. And the last one we went to no, not the last one. The next to the last one was this. What's the name of it? It was the Muse. It was huge. I mean, it was built on the side of a hill and had this beautiful clubhouse and tennis court, swimming pool, and 30% affordable. And you listed all the rents and the prices and stuff. That sort of thing could be created in Madison, I think, without any objection. But we need volume. I mean, we can't do it one at a time. We've got to do it at multiple hundreds of a time in order to be even close to achieving our goal. And we need to work with Penrose. We need to work with other developers. Now, one thing I will say is that we asked all 4. One of them didn't have the developer there. They had a town planner meet with us. But 3 of the 4 all admitted they couldn't do it again at today's construction prices. And that was significant to me. That was really significant to me. So we've got to find a developer who's willing to stretch. We got to stretch with them in order to get funding for these. But they're the ones that we visited. I mean, they were hand selected by the Finks, and it was a wonderful journey. I'm sorry, more of you weren't there. And Heather, I hope we can get on our bus and look at a few of the Essex one. Like Jane said, these are nice developments. They're houses, they're beautiful apartments that fit right into the environment and into the town. We enjoyed this trip a lot and learned a lot with it too. And some of the data's in here. I don't know, Bennett, we both of us were, pretty amazed at what we saw and very happy with what we saw and what we heard.
I was also struck by the diversity. One of the projects was 84 owner-occupied standalone condos. Very small lots, right? But and their own condo association. Another, the last one we saw was really interesting. In Milford, same developer had enormous neighborhood opposition to the first project. They took 4 private lots that were in our same area, single family lots, and through a friendly 830G, they put up 12 townhouses, 3 to a building, 4 buildings, 4 lots. 2 years later, they went across the street and did the same thing without a peep from the neighbors who had all fought the first one. And they were gorgeous, and they even elevated them and put in garages on the ground floor. So they went up 2 stories, and highest quality workmanship, at least from the outside, sided with cedar shingles, and there was copper flashing. I mean, astounding, affordable.
No junk cars, no junk bicycles, no trash in the front yard, kids running around.
The kids playing basketball in the parking lot.
Sure.
I know it's one of our to-dos, but one of them is to identify the town property that's available. And it feels very much like, that is one of the limitations today is what's available to develop for these developers. If we could find and identify 2 to 3 sites in the town properties that we could put an RFP out to these developers who we now get inroads with and say, what could you do with this? And what would you need from the town? Like, come back to us, put it the onus on them, come back to us with a plan to develop this property for affordable housing for the town. What kind of project would you create? feels like you could start a dialogue around that property, go down that process. But that feels like a start, because, you know, what properties even available today? There's nothing on the market.
I'm hoping to have.
Well, I asked that question like at one of our first meetings. Where's a map? And it's basically double secret. And I just talked about this with Erin earlier this morning when we were talking about the website, that topic came up for us. And I said to her, at what point is the town gonna be willing to talk about it with us in terms of where property is? Cause you know, we can't, you know, it's all double secret. I mean, it's
Well-
like, what, you know, come on. Either they're behind this or they're not behind this.
It
help
is
us
a public-
out.
It is a public record, what land is owned by the town, it's not, I don't think it's a secret, I think they just haven't put it together.
So as a committee, do we need to make a formal request to
Yeah.
our
We did ask for.
I think that there, and I think there is a facilities,
There is.
there is a facilities review committee that is in the process of gathering. information. And so once that is done, I think taking their information.
Yeah, but we're not gonna wait.
It's a lot of the bills of bureaucracy.
They're gonna look at its current use, its present use. We just need an inventory for starters, and we can come back with them when they're ready.
Right, and we could approach it as, hey, you know, we have been gathering intel from affordable housing developers. We can put a view on this and come back to you with a recommendation on properties that may be of interest to them as you think about highest and best use within your inventory, so that we provide some input into their own review from our perspective on.
It is, one thing to remember, the Island Avenue School, for example,
Oh, yeah.
or the academy, it gets very political very fast.
Sure.
So, I think that the idea of gathering that information is important. I think we have to work with the town. I don't think we are going to then ask the developer. I think it has to be done publicly, and people have chances.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it starts with, this group gets the list. We put some perspective on it. We input it to this town property planning,
Well, yeah. Eric.
whatever.
Yeah.
They come back and say, we should evaluate these. We can put it out to RFP. That doesn't mean you do anything with it. Then you have a community engagement around those RFPs. Like, we've done these processes with the academy. It takes a long time, to your point. We don't even have a list of properties, which is part of our charge to go do, and I think is a gating factor to us actually moving it. That's,
And what we learned from the developer, it's 2.5 to 3 years under the best of circumstances, with the town fully engaged. So, you know,
I think we agree, Eric, you laid it out. I think it's exactly what we have to do. I agree with that. I think that should be part of the minutes of the meeting. Yes, we want to do that.
well, we have
But it's,
unofficial work group that's working.
but I think we need to make it an official part of the minutes that we want that information. You know, we didn't ask for it previously. We don't think it ever should have. It's an official request. We haven't made any official requests. We did informal.
Of the 4 affordable housing properties we saw, there was less than 100 which were actually affordable. They were market price and they were also, 30%. So I barely added up to 100. I didn't add it up, but I would be surprised if we came up to 100 that were affordable. Our task is to come up with 800 of them, okay? Now, so it's not as small. I mean, we can't ever lose sight of it. Any progress we make, of course, is gonna be valuable. But boy, when we think of hundreds, we gotta look big.
We also have to be strategic, right? So coming in with a 180 unit apartment complex might not be the place to start.
Well, yes. I think we, I mean, perhaps not everybody has said something. I mean, does anybody want to say anything more about this? I think we do need to do those things that have been outlined, and I think that I will also work with Aaron and say, when are we gonna get it?
Yeah.
We can look at it. I mean, there's this whole school reorganization thing means that closing schools will be knocked down.
Yeah.
Not replaced. So, that's Two balloons that we got.
Yeah.
Then two, so, since you that might be a good place to start, because there's
Yes.
water and electricity and everything else.
And we own the lot next to, Jeffrey.
Separate.
Jeffrey property, we bought that lot for. Who knew what
Expansion.
expansion.
Okay, ready for the future?
The
Okay,
future is here. It's affordable.
I'm ready it down, you know. Future is here. All right, let me, 24 Wall Street is the next item on the agenda, just to bring up the date. Jane and I had a meeting with Erin last week, and she is very supportive of seeing what we can do. She has, before she left, before she mentioned that she has contacted people who would be perhaps interested in helping us get the first initial study, which I think might cost as much as $25,000. So we also are looking at a private standpoint, just as a rich individual who may want to do the same kind of thing, more for the idea of preservation than for housing. So Aaron is supposed to be giving me all more details. So we're moving ahead with that, and probably talk to the library, and the idea is to tell the library that there is something going on and that they should not decide. Which is what they're probably planning.
Great, nice job, guys. I mean, to me, that's a really like preservation of the streetscape and a historic building in town, affordable housing, like talk about again, earned media, if we could push that
Yeah.
forward. Be a great sort of
Yeah.
small, not hundreds, you know, but small success story.
It's two, so all we need is 798 more.
We're on our way.
We're on our way. Gotta start with that first step. If any other reports from the committee, working groups, anybody, I know Francine, where you are, do you want to have any further conversations about?
Well, I don't know if this was said before or not. So Aaron is taking the, I spoke with Aaron about the website and getting the FAQs on the website and redesigning the website. So if I'm understanding her correctly, basically, there's really nobody in the town that designs websites. Basically, we give the information to this person, they put it on the website. So neither Aaron or I are website designers, but at the moment, we're just going to at least get the FAQs there. She's going to have whoever the person is, I forget her name is Rita or something, at least put it on that page, our page, you know. And then she and I talked about the fact that, at least in my opinion, first of all, I don't know anything about designing websites, but I know when I look at ours, it looks very boring and utilitarian and very uninviting, you know. And so we talked about at least figuring out how to redo the page. So I think what I'm going to do, she mentioned to me that different towns have, I think I'm going to go to some different towns and just see what their page looks like. And basically like take screenshots if I see some that look better. I mean, I'm looking for something that at least like has some color on it a little bit, or something that looks modern, you know. Don't know how to describe it, but at any rate, so that's going to be a work in progress. So at the very least, we'll get the FAQs, a button to push, you know, like a thing on there that if people even wander over there, because I'm sure most people don't even know we have a website. And really, I don't even, do we call it a website? It's just a page. It's like everybody else has a page. Every committee has a page. I clicked on a few of them. They all kind of look the same. And they've got this extraneous stuff on the left that really means nothing to us. It's just a listing. So we need to get rid of that. So anyway, long story short, we're going to have to work on we're going to have to design it ourselves. And so I don't know if any of you do that for a living, but otherwise I'll have to try and figure out how to come up with some ideas. Maybe I'll get my 13-year-old grandson to help me out with that.
He
Probably knows more than all.
will.
My son is a website designer, and I'll just ask him for recommendations in this area. He went to Hand, and he may know somebody in the area.
Yeah, well, that's very handy. All right, thanks. So anyways, you know, we're gonna work on that, but the FAQs at the very least, I guess we'll get on there as soon as she can. And at least we've done that. And so if somebody wanders over there, they'll see that and maybe they'll click on it and that'll help them out. Well, and I just want to ask, I couldn't get, speaking of FAQs, I couldn't get it all at the beginning, but Bennett, you guys were talking about your meeting and this maybe sounded, I thought maybe this was what you were saying. Were you thinking that it might be a good idea at when we have these community meetings to have some, like a little handout of questions and answers that we would hand out? Because I was thinking maybe that's a good idea. It just lets people leave with.
The last two meetings. we've
Did you do
given
that?
a handout. The last two meetings, we've given a handout of the FAQs
Your handout.
and the 2021 SCROG, Madison Affordable Housing.
Okay, I think that's a good idea, because I think when, it's one thing to listen to stuff in a meeting and then you leave and you say to yourself, what did they say? Especially when you talk about numbers or percentages or whatever, that's very hard to retain. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't know if other people feel the same, but, yeah. Are there more meetings scheduled? I don't even know. Because unfortunately I was sick. I couldn't go to anything. I wanted to go to some of those to see how they played out. Are there any more?
You and I are the communications committee, so once you are free of COVID, we should sit down and start taking some of the stuff, start making some specific plans as our working group. So.
Okay.
I think one thing that we should do is develop an outline of what we might want to provide for any type of journalistic opportunity that comes up on the announcement of the committee not being ad hoc anymore. I just think we better have something ready for that. And that includes, so the FAQs are great for a journalist, but any other information that might be extraneous that we can add to that.
Madison statistics.
Yeah, all those Madison statistics, types of jobs, stuff like that.
Well, actually, the report that the printed out report that we received last year would actually be a good background for.
I just think we should have something that's concise and ready to go to any journalist. So, yeah,
That's right. Gives you that. It's dated because it's 2 years old, but that just means the numbers are even more compelling than the one. Because all the prices of housing.
Okay, I mean, we should compare
We
this.
do have that.
So Francine and I will get together shortly and figure out, what we have, and we can have a further conversation at the next meeting. As to what we're going to say, we still have time. It's not till the end of November when the board meets. So.
We also have our updated charter
You know,
statement that we
board
can
meeting
use
is
as a reference,
so.
and what we submitted to we have the updated charter we submitted, and also the document we submitted to the planning. So both of those, I think, can help communicate who we are. But you're right, we need the sort of standard go-to.
Any other reports from work groups? Anybody else?
We have a new work group from last time to begin thinking about some recommendations, how to begin thinking about training recommendations. We're going to meet later in the month, and we'll report back.
Training, you said training recommendations.
No,
What would you say?
sorry.
Yeah.
We're charged with
He's across from me.
thinking about recommendations, how we might want to frame those.
Oh, okay, yes.
That's the one we talked about last meeting. It's these guys.
You said frame, not train. Okay.
Sorry. And so we'll bring back some initial ideas about how we can.
Good.
How to think about things.
Yep. Schedules for next year. We started the conversation last meeting. So the proposal was to, the thought was that we should switch from bi-weekly meetings to a less frequency. And Francine suggested just twice a month as opposed to every 2 weeks. Then it was mentioned that maybe the committee should meet once a month, be more substantive and put more on the working groups to develop ideas. So any thoughts on that? That, as far as I'm concerned, those are the 3 options we have. Do what we're doing right now, switch to a very small change, which is 2 meetings a month, whatever the dates happen to be. We can still stay with a Wednesday and, or any other meeting. And then the third one would be to be less frequently as a group, but be more frequently amongst ourselves on these special working groups.
I would vote for the latter. Have the working groups meet, put forth things that they then bring to the committee, share more broadly once a month. I think that may advance things.
I like that idea. I think it would advance things. You always, like we put timelines on things and you have goals and objectives. I think I would agree with that. I'd go once a month. We can meet work groups, and like someone said, I think if we need a special meeting,
We can always have a
have
special
a special
meeting,
meeting.
but we do have to give the town this whole list for the year. So
Okay. Oh, I got
ahead of time, so people, the official.
Okay.
Could I just ask a question? Mark? Whatever change we make, I assume we're starting that in January, so we don't have to redo or what?
It's gonna be- We have to keep the schedule through this year. We have to keep the schedule through this year.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Can't change it.
We're still learning. I mean, every meeting, we're learning something new about the area, about available sites, about developments that we visited. We're still learning. We gotta keep this up. The educational part of it is a big part, and I'm for every 2 weeks. That's where my stake goes.
Okay.
I'm with Peter, if we are going to once a month with committee reports, then I'm with Anthony, though. It has to be structured and it has to be a really strong commitment that we actually will get substantive reports, because otherwise we lose the cost.
Right, and we don't want to lose momentum.
I'm with Peter on this because I feel like, there's a lot that we need to uncover still. And the fact that, we have, Heather and Molly and Erin in our meeting, I think that things will start to, gel, and we will be getting more information once we even get the information about, what parcels of land town owns. I mean, I think there's still a lot to uncover. So I feel like if I only meet with you guys once a month, I feel like we're gonna lose time. And then, what if somebody can't make one of those meetings? At least now, if somebody doesn't make a meeting and it's twice a month, okay, they go to the next meeting. So I just kind of feel like we're still coming up the curve. We probably want to talk to more developers. We probably want to, gather more information, and I just think it's going to require a little more work. Now, that said, we could say, okay, the first 6 months, we're going to meet twice a month, and then the second 6 months, we're going to taper down to once a month. Might be an option. They want to have something temporary.
That works.
Well,
I'm gonna chime in and agree with Jane. While, meeting once a month sounds really nice, I agree with Jane. I think you can really lose a lot of it. That's a long time at this stage of the game. To go between meetings and correctly, if you can't make a meeting, then you're and occasionally a month has 5 weeks. So that's even another week that we wouldn't meet. So I guess I think for me, it's satisfactory to do it like two Wednesdays a month or whatever day we're doing it. It's just a little bit less than every other week. Probably doing it every third week is hard to keep track of. So if you do it twice a month, then you're meeting twice a month. And like Jane says, it doesn't mean we couldn't, as we get down the road, change, and then the calendar changes. The town changes the calendar, no big deal. I mean, if we don't want them to change it for November, December, fine. We can cancel a meeting if we want to. We can say, oh, in December, we're just meeting on the 6th, whatever. It's not like you can't say those meetings are canceled. But yeah, all the reasons Jane articulated, I think I'm in that camp of at least twice a month.
Okay, just to clarify, my understanding is once we submit to the town our schedule for a year, we can't change it.
What?
Oh, that's
Right. That seems crazy.
I don't know whether it's a law. I'm saying that's what I was told. that the.
You want me to jump in?
Yeah.
So they're looking for you to have a set schedule for the year. That's not to
Right.
say that you can't add meetings to that, or you can't cancel meetings, from
Right.
that.
Yeah. You just can't meeting.
It's just a distinction of sort of what you call the meeting and the rules that are around the meeting. So when the agenda has to be posted by, things like that are
I
dependent on
understand-
what you
I
call the
understand
meeting,
that,
that's all.
but if you say that you're gonna meet if you're gonna meet twice a month, and you submit that to the town, yes, you can cancel a meeting and you can add special meetings.
Yes.
Great. But I don't think we want to go in there and say we're gonna meet every 2 weeks and then cancel half the meetings. I don't think that looks.
I also don't think, I am not 100% sure on this, but I don't know if they will allow the 6 months of 2 meetings a month and then
No,
drop
leave that
down.
separate. That's a separate issue. That's a
Okay.
separate issue.
Why wouldn't they?
It's just like it's people.
The town.
Yeah,
It's our meeting.
I mean, I'd have to double check on that, I mean, I don't wanna.
Because I like that idea.
If the-
6 months.
Yeah.
I think you can find out what the rules are, but you don't, it's not a law, it's not a state law. It could very well be the regulations or that the Board of Selectmen has said, if you are a town committee, you must produce a list of when you're gonna meet, so that it can be made available to the public.
I
That's all.
think it's all part of having public meetings.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
any
Public
town you
know
go
has
to is gonna
expectations,
have
right? So the
similar
public
rules
understands and
how
has
they call them.
expectations.
Yeah,
It
and
makes
that's,
sense.
that I'm to show up at the meeting and you're gonna have, you can't.
Cancel.
Yeah.
I
No, we didn't
think that-
cancel one meeting and we've had one special meeting.
I think if we're gonna stay with 2, then we just stay with 2 for the year, keep it straightforward and
I think so
simple.
too.
That's fine.
And I think that we probably should go to 2 a month as opposed to every.
Okay.
Suggestion.
What about
24 meetings a year.
meeting time for those who work?
Well, that's a separate, now, let's agree that what we're gonna do. Meeting will be twice a month. And that will be, let's pick Wednesday, because we've been meeting on Wednesday. Is there any reason not to do Wednesday?
No.
No, okay, so we'll do twice a month, Wednesday, and make it
First and third.
The first and third Monday, is that what we're doing?
okay,
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
I'm sorry, Wednesday,
Wednesday, the first and third.
third Wednesday. Okay, as of January.
Second issue is we are been meeting at 4:00 for up to 2 hours, although we tend to be a little shorter than that. That is gonna be a problem for you two guys than I think almost anybody else. I think more of us are flexible. in certain time. Is there a way other than, I know you get up at 5:30. So. Unless you bring coffee, at least.
Well, I think it was, and just to reflect on the conversation, I think it was both us two, but also our town employees who are on a lot of these committees and spending a lot of evenings at the meetings with us because they have commitments beyond us. There was a suggestion that maybe either less or different times of the day. Is that right? Yes.
Well,
But it-
how do people feel about 5:00?
Would assume, I mean, Heather.
What if we did one in the morning?
Rotate and do one in the morning and
Like the
one,
board of selectmen, one morning, maybe twice a month, once in the morning, once in the evening.
First of the month is the morning. Third week of the month is the evening.
Does that sound better to you? I'm fine with that.
Yeah, in the morning was really hard for me.
Or,
I'm in New Haven at the hospital.
Right.
3-4 days a week.
yeah,
So, yeah, that would be hard. I skedaddle early. when we got-
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the early morning? Is that possible?
let's be realistic. I mean, what,
Yeah.
7:00?
Listen for staff.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about me too. Honestly, I want to get up at 5:30 in the morning. No, I do not.
Can I ask Heather, what time for the town staff is most optimal?
well, I don't think that you all should be gearing it around us, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think for us, in the middle of the day is most optimal to be perfectly, like during normal business hours, but I mean, this is part of the gig, so, you just have to be aware that there'll be times when there's town staff that won't be able to attend meetings, that's
So basically, how has this 4 o'clock time been working, generally speaking? Is that normally when you guys leave, or is that like the last hour, 4 to 5?
It depends on the department, but typically town staff leaves around 4:30. And so this 4 o'clock time is a nice compromise, but it doesn't work for all of you. So maybe there's one we do split the difference. Maybe there's one we do at 3 o'clock, and then there's one we do later at night. Is that?
I think it's actually, as I look at myself, I think it's easiest just to keep one consistent time. And I know Wednesdays are at 4 o'clock. There's just some I haven't been able to make, and it is what it is. There's some others I haven't been able to make either, so.
Yeah, we've all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll agree with that. I like my calendar out.
Yeah.
And that's.
So-
I would vote for not switching times. I just think there's one time on whatever day we decide.
We agree.
Well, let's stick with 4 o'clock.
All right.
Sure, okay.
Short note on the minutes.
Yeah. The courts will be 4 o'clock. The first and third Wednesday of each month, starting in January. And now we have next steps. I have no next steps.
Well, I really agree with, I think we got to identify available properties and then either RFPs or invite developers that we know of, come in and talk about those sites. And then we learn what else we have to do. I'm not going near that, it's the construction costs are too much, or sure, I'd like to develop that, I think that's the direction that we have to start going.
Right, there could be an informal feedback process. You have developed some informal relationships where you could just have a conversation. They could be like, that's a terrible site. And that would be helpful for us. So yeah, that's a fantastic site. And then, I think that feedback, back to Jane's point about gathering feedback, could be really helpful for us. And then we can figure out how to, if there is something there to facilitate through the town process, which I don't understand, but I know there's, to move it forward.
Yeah, we probably talked about it already, just to, say I get the Knights of Columbus on their agenda and St. Margaret's Parish Council. Notify you guys, somebody come with me.
And,
Inform the committee that we're doing a certain time and date.
Yeah.
And if I call Bennett, help. Okay.
I think we all should try to make some of these meetings anyway.
Body armor.
You're gonna want to have people taking notes for you.
Oh,
You can't facilitate.
Get a white.
that I know, yeah. So true.
So there are people, and
But it can be, you can set up a meeting and then it when we don't have.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't have to be the person. Yeah, no, I mean, I think the thing to do is as you get these larger, if you can get these larger groups together, we should then just decide how, who's gonna do it. Who's gonna- But I think we don't have any right now, so as soon as we get something like that, somebody, St. Margaret says, yeah, okay, it's 7:15. Then we'll talk about it, get the team put together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Or the American Legion, or the
yeah.
any
Oh,
one of the groups. I don't know anybody.
I know, yeah. I know the top guys.
Would you?
No, at the American Legion.
American Legion.
Yeah. Sorry?
You know,
It's an old one.
yeah, why not? They have, right?
You're
I know.
giving yourself a lot of work.
I know,
Thank you,
my wife's gonna kill me.
They have monthly meetings.
They do, yeah.
If they don't want to give a special meeting for us, if they slot us either before or after the regular meeting, depending on who it is, so that those who are interested will stick around. That's better than giving us 15 minutes.
No, we don't want 15, it takes at least 45,
I think
probably an
an
hour.
hour,
Yeah.
an hour is the minimum. We pushed it for 12 people for
Well, so, and, you know, for everybody needs.
Take what we can get.
Right.
Okay,
Ideally.
any other,
Before you wrap up, I just wanted to mention that the Board of Selectmen has called a public hearing for the senior and disabled tax abatement and freeze program. We have made some recommendations for changes to the ordinance that we think will be very favorable for senior and disabled folks in town to make the program easier to understand, easier to administer, and more beneficial for folks in town to help them stay in their homes.
that's what we debated, look,
Yes,
your
yeah.
proposal.
And so I think it's important for this group to understand what that's going to a public hearing. The public hearing is called for not next Wednesday, the Wednesday after, so right after our meeting, our next meeting here at 6 o'clock on November 15th.
We should-
There is a public info session being held at the senior center on November 9th, I believe, which is a Thursday at 2 o'clock. And then I have slides here if you guys want to take them home and look them over, just, just for information, but I think it's important for this group to understand these programs, because these programs help seniors stay.
Great, yeah.
Give us the dates again, please.
Sure. So November 9th is the public info session that's being held at the senior center. And that's at 2 o'clock. And then November 15th, here in the Board of Ed room, at 6 o'clock, right after this meeting, is the public hearing.
Can you send us those
Could
slides
stick
digitally?
around
Sure.
for that, just because the votes may be given without
It's a Board of Selectmen vote, it's not even a public.
No, it's a public hearing,
It is a
so
public hearing?
they would like to hear input from the public about the
It's only a
proposed
public hearing, not a public meeting.
No, it's not a public meeting.
public.
Who will vote to make these, the regulations?
I believe the members of the public. Let me double check.
I
I
don't
think that's
I don't
right,
wanna
it is, if
misspeak.
there's a,
If this is a change in the,
It's a change in the ordinance.
if it's a change in the ordinance, then I think it is a public meeting.
it could be, I don't know, I
I
mean,
mean,
it's,
there might be a vote. We need to know. that.
but we'll be here anyway. They're gonna-
Yeah, it's easy, right?
Yeah, that's our next meeting.
I'll find out which it is.
Change the ordinance of what? Senior,
This is the discounts for seniors.
Tax freeze for seniors of low income.
got it.
It's been in place for, what, 20 years?
The freeze program has been in place for 5 or 6 years now. The tax relief program has been in place. Yeah, it's been in place for quite a while.
It's a simplification.
Yeah.
consolidation.
Making the benefits more generous. It's actually combining the two programs, allowing folks to get a benefit from both programs if they've lived in town for 10 years or longer. Where currently they're only allowed to receive a benefit from the greater of the two benefits. So they compare the two benefits, and they're allowed to receive whichever one is the more beneficial. So we've proposed to allow both benefits, a tax relief or a tax abatement, so money off of their property taxes, as well as a freeze, so freezing their taxes at a base rate when they initially apply.
Qualified just by age?
No.
Qualified by age,
Income.
income, disability.
Be a senior,
status.
but then it's,
And it's also tenure. The longer you're here, the greater relief you get on the fees. And most importantly, is that I think it takes it out of politics and makes it a permanent
Yeah.
program, only subject to review if it runs out of money. Otherwise, they had to go to the Board of Finance for. I ran the bill. I was
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
person for it. So this is a big step forward.
okay, is there any further comments, questions? Okay, then we will adjourn at 5:35 PM.
So, yeah, that's okay, we'll meet at the library.
Yep.
That was the day. We're gonna meet the morning. but we have to meet us at 5.
Right.
Yeah.